Hey, this is Danny Rum, and welcome to a very special Sunday of battles that Nick and I have had against a guy named Carson Purple. So a little bit of context to the situation: Carson reached out to us, asked to collab. We decided to challenge him to a Pokemon battle because what better way of collaborating than to have 6 Pokemon beat the other person up in our stead. So it had been a little bit of a while since I got into competitive Pokemon battling. I used to be pretty good in Gen 5 and very good in Gen 3, but Gen 6 is not really my cake. The only real stipulation that we had was no legendaries. We weren't explicitly following a tier, so Nick and I both took it as a bit of an invitation to use some of the Pokemon that were kicked up to Ubers from OU. So if you compare my battle with Carson versus his battle with Carson, you'll see that we have very, very similar teams, although slightly different movesets. So without further ado, I'm going to get into the battle. Looking at Carson's team, I vaguely remember what some of these Pokemon do. Not exactly sure what he's going to lead with, but I decided to lead with my Stealth Rocker because rocks are always valuable to have. My Stealth Rocker is a Garchomp, and it turns out that he leads with his Garchomp as well. So Garchomp versus Garchomp, not exactly sure what the other one wants to do. I do go for the rocks, expecting him to maybe switch out predicting the Clefable, but he goes for the Dragon Tail instead. So seeing that he did not switch out, now I do just hard switch into Clefable because it's immune to Dragon Tail, but turns out that he has Stealth Rock as well. So at this point I'm thinking, okay, he has Stealth Rock and he has Dragon Tail, probably a pretty defensive Pokemon, so I decided to switch into Greninja to threaten it with an Ice Beam. And here, something unfortunate happens. He critical hits with the Earthquake, and down grows Greninja without really doing anything, and that's a bit of a pity, because Greninja is a pretty threatening Pokemon in its own right. So I switched back to Clefable and just decided to pelt it with some Moon Blasts. Fire Blast doesn't do too much to Clefable, Fairy type and Special Wall and all that stuff. So Moon Blast is a solid 2-hit KO. The Earthquake that he follows up with does hit a bit harder than Fire Blast does, so it's a pretty interesting set, bit of a mixture on that Garchomp, and I am fortunately able to take it out. So, here, he... what does he do? He switches into Gliscor, and I know Gliscor has Toxic Orb, it has Poison Heal, and it's a very solid physical threat, so I decided that Gengar is the Pokemon that would resist both of his moves the most. He has Earthquake, then Gengar has Levitate and stuff like that. I expect him to switch out here, so I decided to Mega Evolve, actually trapping the Gliscor. If he had gone for Earthquake there, that would have been a bit of a problem because Earthquake was now super effective on Gliscor, but seeing that he's set up with Swords Dance, and he hit me with a follow-up Poison Jab, I guess he didn't have Earthquake, or maybe he didn't want to Earthquake into the normal Gengar. So, fortunately Mega Gengar is able to take it out before any Earthquake-related disasters happen, and he goes out into his Klefki. I'm not exactly sure what he wanted to do with Klefki, being that Shadow Tag does trap it in completely, but I go for the taunt, and it's kind of funny figuring that Klefki really can't do anything after the taunt. I figured I had a safe switch into Blaziken, because if he has Iron Head, Blaziken resists it, but it turns out it was an extremely safe switch to Blaziken, because all Klefki has is Struggle. It has 4 support moves, I guess. So this is a pretty good time for me to Swords Dance up. Here he switches into Aerodactyl, which I know would be a bit of a threat to Blaziken. I'm expecting that it has a Choice Scarf or something to be able to outspeed after the speed boost, but fortunately I pack both Swords Dance and Protect on Blaziken, so with the 2 times speed instead of the 1.5 times speed, I'm pretty confident that I'd be able to outspeed a Choice Scarf Aerodactyl. Hit it with a Flare Blitz, not entirely sure if it kills. Again, I'm rusty with 6th gen in general, and I don't really know how much damage to expect from any of these moves. Fortunately, the +2 Flare Blitz does KO the Aerodactyl, and Blaziken is now threatening Pokemon. So here he makes a very good play and switches into his Klefki. Now that it is not taunted, Klefki can Thunder Wave Blaziken to threaten it a little bit more. So I protect here and let him go for the Thunder Wave, because I figure that there's nothing really lost from doing that. Maybe if he decided to switch into his Gengar or his Blaziken, I could, or not his Blaziken, his Breloom, I'd be able to catch it off guard, but no such case there. I go back into Mega Gengar because that's proven to be a pretty reliable counter, and it is already paralyzed. Not exactly sure what else it wants to do. If it wants a set of spikes, then that's fine, but I figured once I get the taunt, I'll just let it struggle itself to death, and it wouldn't really have the problem. So that's what I do, go for the taunt. These next couple moves just follow sequentially. And yeah, the 4 support move Klefki is a pretty effective set, but I guess Taunt hard counters it. Mega Gengar with Shadow Tag is such a powerful Pokemon. You really, if you can get Mega Gengar in on the right threat, then it can really do a lot of damage and just neutralize something completely. Understandable that it would get kicked up into Ubers. So here he brings in Breloom, and I'm like, okay, Breloom, it has Spore, it has cool things, he can't Spore me because I'm paralyzed. Turns out it has Swords Dance. I was going for a regular attack there, but it might have been better to taunt just in case of that. So here he goes for Swords Dance again, and I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be rough. I use Destiny Bond. Now, it might have been advantageous for him to just keep Swords Dancing up and wait for either full paralysis to kick in or me to run out of Destiny Bond PP, so that way it wouldn't have to fodder itself like he did just now. I didn't really have any priority on my team, so it was a bit of a risk. If he had Knock Punch, then that would have outsped Blaziken, and I think if it was at +3, then it would have killed. Blaziken's defenses are not very strong. But that's not the case. I bring in Garchomp to KO the Gengar and was able to get this win, so that was a very good battle. Check out Carson Purple's channel, he's a pretty cool guy. And also check out Nick's battle to see how Nick did with a very similar team to mine. That is all I have to say about that. Look forward to round 2 coming out next Sunday, and have a good day.